Okay, so next we have my good friend Dr. Chuck Chakrapani, who, ladies and gentlemen, is a local Torontonian, in the sense that he is distinguished visiting professor at the Ted Rogers School of Management, which is part of Ryerson University, where we're doing Stoicon X, incidentally, tomorrow, which many of you are attending. And Chuck has been invaluable in helping to organize that event, and he's going to be at Stoicon X tomorrow as well. He is the author of Unshakable Freedom, Ancient Stoic Secrets Applied to Modern Life, and I think 4 other books on Stoicism? Yeah? And his talk is entitled The Stoic Minimalist, Practicing Stoicism, Avoiding Controversies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. The red one, right?
The white one.
White. Okay. The top one?
The right arrow, Chuck.
This one.
To advance it, that arrow.
Oh, that one. Okay.
No, there we go.
Oh, there you go. These are the speakers today. Professors, psychotherapists, best-selling authors, and philosophers. Who am I? None of those. Okay. Now, I don't even call myself a Stoic. It seems too presumptuous to call myself a Stoic. But I'm a modern Stoic in the sense Donald Robertson defined it. You are interested in Stoicism, and you have not been dead for 400 years. I am sure I qualify, especially on the second ground. I got a lot of bills to prove it. Now, my story is a story of a revelation. Okay, how it all started. It started when I was a teenager. Long time ago, in a land far away, I was caught in the rain. Don't look for me in that picture. I'm not there because I was one of those stupid guys who didn't have an umbrella. So I went looking for shelter. And the only place that would have me, welcome me in fact, was the local library. It was deserted. So I went in, picked up a book at random, and it was the Meditations from Marcus Aurelius. You just wonder why a teenager would walk into a library on a Saturday afternoon and pick up Marcus Aurelius, a dead emperor, rather than, let's say, Superman comics. The reason was I was tall and awkward as a teenager. Everyone would make fun of me, but I always felt superior when I could reach the top shelf. But then they arranged the book in alphabetical order. I ended up with Marcus Aurelius instead of Superman comics. Anyway, I started reading it. First chapter was, I more or less skipped. Second chapter started like this. People I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Yeah, the world hasn't changed in 2,000 years. Okay. All of them due to offenders' ignorance of good and evil. This was somewhat different. No matter what I thought of people who are annoying me, I never thought of them as ignorant. But what stopped me was the next sentence. But I have seen the beauty of good and ugliness of evil. No one can implicate me in ugliness. This was something very different, because this is not supported by any culture today. Our culture supports robotic behavior. Fight back, be brutal, be tough. Even if you dismiss Trump as one of a kind, this type of talk you hear all the time. You have the right to fight back. You know, if you are not strong like that, people will take advantage of you. You keep constantly hearing this. But what Marcus Aurelius was saying is something different. He said, people who behave in undesirable ways are ignorant. And how is it any better if you behave equally ignorantly? At the same time, I was also interested in Jewish contemporary history. Did I tell you I was a nerd? So I was reading a guy called Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor and a psychotherapist. And he had this to say: between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. It's the same thing that Marcus Aurelius was saying. But the next sentence was even more powerful. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Marcus Aurelius was saying you have to choose your response. Viktor Frankl was saying, when you choose it, you grow and you are free. And that was very powerful. And these two things together became my first revelation. That is, under any condition, you can choose your response, and you should. And this went on for the next 7 or 8 years. This is all I knew about Stoicism. I went back and did meditation many times, but nothing stuck except this. Okay, you have the right, you can choose your response under any condition. Okay? And then after a few years, I came across this. I came across a book called Enchiridion. Some things are up to us, others are not. Up to us are whatever is our own action, not up to us are whatever is not our own. It made sense, except when I started reading his explanation. He said, your body, your property, your reputation, they are not under your control. What kind of nonsense is that? When you are in your 20s, your body is under your control. You know, if you train to run, you run faster. You lifted weight, you had better biceps. So he's saying it's not under your control. Property, of course, we live in the same house for 50 years. What does he mean by property is not under your control? Then two things happened. One of my friends who went to school with me drowned in a freak accident. He was in his early 20s. Another of my friends who had a rare genetic disease, by which when he was 20, he looked like as though he was 60 or 70. So I suddenly realized, yes, it's not under your control. So the thing is, that's why he didn't say it's a trichotomy, it's a multichotomy, it's a dichotomy, or syntichotomy. It's a dichotomy. You don't have control. That realization came to me, so I doubled my Stoic knowledge. Don't worry about things you can't control. You can control most things anyway. Years went by, and I read discourses. It had this sentence: nothing outside of you is good or evil. This was a tough one. I didn't understand this at all, because I was not a good guy, but I was never evil. I lied here and there. You know, I took what doesn't belong to me. I helped myself to 2 servings, but I wasn't evil. But I saw much evil outside. Women being raped and children being killed, terrorists blowing up the planes. He's saying nothing is that, all those things are not evil. I am evil. I didn't understand, but somehow this sentence fascinated me. I stayed with it for many months. And then it occurred to me, whatever you see outside is a part of reality. You can do nothing about it. You have nothing to do with it. You can do nothing about it. It is what it is. So the way you to react is where the evil or good comes from. So reality is not. Think about this. I tripled my statistics, my Stoic knowledge in 10 years. Okay? So at this time, I realized all my Stoic knowledge can be written in one post-it notes. You are not a robot, you choose your response. There is no point in worrying if you cannot do anything about it. Relax, there is no evil out in the outside world. But here's the thing. What I didn't know anything about was Stoic physics, Stoic ethics, Stoic logic, Stoic virtue, Stoic topoi, Stoic history, and 9,994 other things I didn't know. Then I realized, well, in this vast ocean of Stoic knowledge, mine was a thimbleful. Okay? Mine was a thimbleful. Anyway, even then I realized, after 20 or 30 years of doing this, if I had been hit by a Ferrari, or even by a beat-up Mack truck and got killed, still my life in the previous 20 or 30 years would have been better lived. than if I had not come across those principles. So, well, I got greedy. So let me read more. So I reread all the ancient Stoics, read some modern Stoics, read all those things. And then I even wrote a book that no one has ever heard of. And then I thought I heard of something called Stoicon. I didn't know what Stoicon was. It's just last year. I was working on my own. I didn't know what Stoicon was. I thought it made something like Comic-Con. People went like, Comic-Con where people go dressed like comic characters. I thought maybe it'll be like this. Maybe Diogenes was selling the bobbleheads of philosophers. Or maybe Plato is hawking books and philosophy books. I don't know. So I went very nervously. I walked into New York, Stoicon. It was more like this. Okay, I was a bit relieved. Then I heard of Facebook and various things existing. Until about last year, I didn't know any of those things. So I joined Facebook. And I gingerly told them, why don't we, there are all these very complicated discussions. So I gingerly wrote, why don't we use Stoic philosophers that work for us? Why bother about anything else? I was told off. Virtue is the most important thing, Stoicism. You don't know anything about it. And so, well, maybe I shouldn't be talking about Stoicism because everybody seems to know more than me. Anyway, with doing all this, reading so many books again, and going to Stoicon, reading Facebook, same thing, the post-it note didn't change. These are the only three things. And I wonder, how is it possible? If I had read all these books, and I participated in these conferences, and used the social media and saw everything, and still I didn't learn anything more than these three things that I can use. Then I realized there are very few basic concepts in Stoicism. Yours, not yours, desires, aversion, choice, control, impression, judgment, and they're all interrelated. It doesn't matter, you take any 3 or 4, and if you go in depth, you cover everything. So Stoicism is not a staircase. It is not like each step you need to go to the next step. If you do mathematics, you have to know arithmetic to learn algebra. You have to learn algebra to understand calculus. So it's a step-by-step thing. It's basic, intermediate, advanced. Stoicism is a symphony. It's a symphony. Stoicism is a symphony. It is, from the very beginning, you have all the concepts. All you have, you understood it in greater depth. You understood better and better. There are 96 discourses in Epictetus' discourses. Read any 10 at random. You would not find any new concepts in the remaining 86. It is like going to the Minimalist ninth. There are 4 movements. You go to the first movement, at the beginning, you will not find any more instruments. Then you would find, if you go to the 4th movement, the final 10 minutes. It's the same thing. That is Stoicism. Okay? To me, anyway. What do I know? So all this criticism I received from my Facebook comments, I said, it doesn't matter. It's not Stoicism. People taught in Athenian Agora, the busiest marketplace in the world at the time. They did not go to Lyceum, an opulent hall like Lyceum, and teach like Aristotle did. They did not go to an idyllic garden and seclude themselves and teach like Epictetus did. They were there like this, in a structure where there's no window, there's no door. And they taught anybody who wants to listen. And that is Stoicism. So I thought, well, then I have the right to say whatever I want to say. If you don't want to listen, you don't have to. So, anyway, so I took all my knowledge of ancient Stoicism, not much, but all I knew, and then put it in 3 drawers. The bottom one was not relevant, not verifiable. What is not relevant and not verifiable? Let's say Stoicism somewhere says the world begins in fire, ends in fire. And this process is repeated over and over again. I said, is it verifiable? No. Suppose Stephen Hawking calls me when I go back home tonight and say, Chuck, it is true, I found out, I changed my views. If he did that, is it relevant? Would anything change? No. So anything like that went to the bottom drawer. And then there are certain things maybe relevant but not verifiable. Things like the implication that nature has intent, logos and things like that. If it is true, it is relevant. But can I ever verify it? I don't think I could. Others might. So they all went to that drawer. And then finally, there are relevant and verifiable. If we say something is under our control, something is not. That is relevant and that is verifiable. So I put those into 3 drawers. And then I pulled each drawer to see what are in those drawers. This is how it turned out. Not relevant and not verifiable, mostly Stoic physics. Maybe relevant, not verifiable, mostly metaphysics. Relevant, verifiable, mostly ethics. And then I took ethics, and then I tried to see what is in there. Some are totally irrelevant. For example, there are products of their time. If you read Epictetus, it's sexist. But it is not sexist in the sense that he lived 2,000 years ago. So it is silly of us to say he was sexist. If he lived here, I don't think he would have said anything like what he said. He says in one case, your philosophy is not even good enough for a woman. He says that. And whenever he mentions your family, he always says your father, your brother, your son. You wouldn't think that anybody had mother or sister or daughters. Okay, this goes on and on. But once again, I don't believe he was a sexist, but if we look at it from the way we understand it, it would be sexist. So all those things out. And there are certain things that are unhelpful definitions. If you are not virtuous, you are vicious. Maybe true, but how is it helpful to know that? I mean, to a practitioner. Whatever was left was brilliant. And then, here is a problem. What did the Stoics do? They stood in a stoa, and they taught in Greece, and spoke the language of their time. That is, if you look at the writings of Arrian, it is said that Arrian's discourses, where he transcribed the writings of the speeches of Epictetus, it's in Koine Greek, which is a colloquial Greek. But when you read his other works, like Anabasis of Alexander, it is in more literate Greek. So from this we know that they were speaking the language of their time, they're speaking the idioms of their time, the Stoics. So shouldn't we speak the language of our time, speak the idiom of our time? If you read almost any introduction to ancient classics of Stoicism, you always find, they didn't mean God the way we mean it now. They didn't mean ethics the way they mean it now. They didn't mean virtue in the way we mean it now. And yet we go ahead and use the same words. Now, if you read something in the introduction, by the time you read it in the 10th page, when you think of God, you think of God like the Christian God. Think of virtue, we think of virtue as we think. So should we be using those words? Okay. Now, there are 3 things I'm going to talk about. This may be a bit controversial, but I want to say it anyway. You can disagree. And there's no time for asking questions. God in Stoicism. What is God? Well, you read I spent about 1,000 hours last year reading and rereading different versions of discourses. God, in many places, Epictetus defines living according to the will of God is the same as living according to nature. And if you inquire what is living according to nature, you are not talking about streams and trees and global warming. What he was talking about living according to human nature. And you inquire what is living according to human nature? He says living rationally. So in fact, God is defined as leading a rational life. See? Ethics. What is ethics in Stoicism? Stoic ethics, eudaimonic. They were not teaching to other philosophers. They were talking in Athenian Agora for people to improve their life, how they can be happy, how they can achieve eudaimonia. So, what they meant by ethics was it helps you to flourish. What is unethical is if it doesn't help you to flourish. Now we come to the holy grail of Stoicism, virtue. What is virtue? What is virtue? It's not even used in modern things. You say somebody is ethical, you say he believes in God. Who is virtuous? We don't even use that word. We understand it. Virtue, holy grail of Stoicism. What is virtue? I was really had trouble until Crisgill's, I read Crisgill's crystal clear explanation. Virtue is a form of expertise or skill, a knowledge of how to live well in every way, a form of knowledge that shapes the whole personality and life. Crystal clear explanation of what virtue was. It is a form of skill that you need to flourish. That's it. That's all there is to it. Then I had this tremendous problem with these 4 virtues: moderation, wisdom, justice, and courage. What are they? Where do they come from? Look, if there's 10 commandments, you don't go asking, why not 12 commandments? Why not 4 commandments? You just accept 10 commandments, right? But if a rational philosophy like Stoicism says there are 4 virtues, you just wonder, why these 4? Why courage? Why not compassion? Why not even patience? Why these 4? I was totally confused about this. Okay, why these 4? Okay, and then again, Chris Gell comes to the rescue. He says, well, your life has 4 aspects. There you are, and you have to deal with others, right? And you have your desires, you have your aversions. These are the areas you have to deal with your life, in your life. So you think of virtues as special skills you need to deal with these 4 areas of your life. So when you deal with yourself, when you ask the question, is this under my control? You are using wisdom. Okay? When you moderate your desires, your moderation and courage you need to face your aversions, justice in dealing with others. Now it made perfect sense why these 4 virtues are and why they are there. Okay? And exploring this for the past few months took me to unexpected places. The first one is virtue is context specific. That means it's not like if it's a compassion, you can practice compassion anywhere. I can practice compassion with my family, with friends, or if I am by myself, on myself. This is not like that. Courage is not courage. It's fighting tigers or jumping out of a plane. Nothing like that. Courage is context specific. It is to face your aversion. Okay, that's the only reason it exists. So it's completely context specific. And second thing is it's fiercely personal. Fiercely personal. Your justice is there not because it benefits the society, not because it will be good for somebody else. It's because you won't flourish if you don't follow that. This is the whole thing. Because if you look at Stoics, emperors were beheading people, exiling people. They never talked against that. They never even talked that much about slavery. They didn't talk about it, or gladiators with blood sports. They didn't talk about any of those things. They talked about justice. When you deal with other person, that's the time you need justice. So it's not a generalized trait. So it's fiercely personal. And third thing was, if you practice these Stoic principles, then you automatically follow virtue and topais. Let's say, for example, some things are up to us, others are not. Let's say the stock market collapses and I lose all my money. First thing I ask myself is this under my control? When I do that, I use the virtue of wisdom. Then I decide, no, it's not. I give assent. Then you say, should I steal some money or should I embezzle some money? I say, no, it won't lead to happiness in the long run. I use the virtue of justice. I ask the question, is it okay to be distraught about this? No, it's nothing to you because it's outside of you. Wisdom of courage. I wish the stock market hadn't collapsed. The desire is outside your control. Let go of this thinking. That is moderation. So I practice all virtues and the discipline without knowing anything about them. This is what was happening to me for 20, 30 years of my life. I was practicing all these without knowing there was anything called virtue. So it's not the other way around. It's not, you can't practice virtue and then hope you are a Stoic. No, the virtues are not independent of the precepts. So Stoic minimalism is simply ancient Stoicism minus Stoic physics and metaphysics, minus archaic and unhelpful, minus other gobbledygook, plus modern terminology. That's it. Right? So now, I'm aware. So instead of saying a Stoic lives according to nature, using ethics and virtues to guide his action to attain eudaimonia or flourishing, I'd rather say a Stoic lives rationally, using special knowledge needed to live a flourishing life. For me, both are equivalent. And now I look at it and then say, well, in this vast ocean of knowledge, Stoic knowledge, mine is still a thimbleful. In my boastful moments, I might say it's 2 thimblefuls, but still not very much. So how do I know what I've been talking so far is nonsense or not? I have a special friend. Whenever I'm not quite sure, I ask him. His name was Epictetus. I was my Stoic friend, mentor, and hero. Professor Epictetus, what do you think? He says, what do I care whether matter is made up of atoms, indivisible, fire, or earth? With one sentence, he dismisses Stoic physics. He pulls my bottom drawer where I had stored all these things, throws it out of the window. Then read his next sentence. It may well be that human mind cannot comprehend these things. Even if it can, well, what good is to comprehend them? So he pulls my second drawer on metaphysics, throws it out. Then he goes a step further. He says, as to what nature is, how she governs the universe, and whether she really exists or not. These are the things we need not busy ourselves any further now. Wow. Here he's saying, after exhorting you to follow nature, for 96 of his discourses, he just says, hey, I don't know how nature works. I'm not even sure if there is nature. Wow. I'm stunned. So I say, so Professor Epictetus, what's your last word? So he says, isn't it enough to know the nature of good and evil, the limits of desire and aversion, and choice and refusal, and use these as virtual guidelines for how to live, and dismiss the rest that is beyond us? Wow. So I recognize what he has done is he has taken my Post-it notes, crumpled it and threw it away, and gave me another Post-it note. Isn't it enough to know the nature of good and evil, and limits of desire? That's all there is to Stoicism. That's what he says. In every wisdom tradition, there comes a time where the sage says the essence of everything. It happens in almost every tradition. If you look at Judaic tradition, around the time Epictetus lived, there was this Jewish sage, Hillel. So an impertinent Gentile goes to him and he says, listen, teach me all Torah. But unfortunately, I don't have very much time. I have as much time as you can stand on one leg. So stand on one leg and teach me the entire Torah. his students get outraged. Torah is a set of 5 books. And people spend years and years in his study. And his students were listening to him. They were outraged. They chase him away. Then Hillel addresses his students. He says, that which is hateful to you, do not do to others. This is the whole of Torah. Now go and study. So here, Epictetus is saying, nature of good and evil, limits of desire, choice and free. This is the whole of Stoicism. Now go and study. So, thank you very much for being so generous in letting me share my thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chuck.
Thank you.